Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Now I was going to go outside and actually put some compost on the top of some of my pots, and guess what, it's pouring down, so I changed my mind. So I came upstairs, and then the other choice was to do my tax return, and I thought, nope, I'm not doing that either. So instead I've decided I'm going to do a card instead. And I thought I would pop along and create a card with the Auricula stamp set TE2, my second stamp. So, and I love this image. So I've got some colours out. Oh, apart from my grey. Why do I always forget one colour? You can't make it up. I do it every time. I always forget one colour. And honestly, it'll be the one colour that is in the drawer I'm not looking in. Yep, every time. So I've pulled some colours out. And I just thought I'd have a little play. No plan, because I've literally come upstairs. And I thought, no, I'm not working in the rain, so we'll come and do this. So I'm going to use the Auricula stamp. And what am I going to start with? Which one do I fancy? I think I'm going to stamp the actual Auricula in Rustic Wilderness. And I love playing with different colour ideas. So I'm going to use the Rustic Wilderness. And I love sort of just relaxing and playing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a wipe ready. I'm going to grab some kitchen roll, which really, before I start the video, I should get them ready. But because I've come upstairs off the cuff, that's me all over. That's just exactly what I'm like. I flit from one thing to another. Honestly, I'm hopeless. So I'm just going to wipe down here just to remove this little bit of text just for now. And then I'm going to stamp. Look, I've already got a little bit of Rustic Wilderness on there. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to add, let's add this one sort of here. So I'm going to add this here. And I'm stamping with the Distress Oxides. So the Distress Oxides are a pigment dye fusion. And because of that pigment element, it means they stamp beautifully. There's no beading up, obviously, unless you spritz with water. They react with water, which is the whole point of the oxides. So you can see I've got, it doesn't matter, you know, the black area. Let me just pull this out. On my stamp, the black area is a little bit distressed. That's the whole point. So now I'd already got my masks cut out, which you can see how well they're used. The only difficulty then is you can't actually see where your mask goes because you've used it so frequently. Try having the writing the right way up, Tracy, is often a good pointer. Usually gives you a clue there. Oh, I've never been a bright spark, and not on a Sunday anyway. Poor soul. Right, there we go. And then I'm going to ink again. And when I'm adding, just to make sure I've got plenty of ink, can you see I'm just slightly twisting the ink pad a little bit, just to make sure there's plenty of ink on there. Let's bring this in so you can actually see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to bring this down here. And we can have a little bit of writing on there, a little bit of text there. So I'm just bringing these auriculas just down, coming around here. And there's going to be some colouring. So when I have a video where there is some colouring, it's going to take me a little bit longer because the process of colouring, it's meant to be enjoyable. So therefore it takes a little bit longer. And you can see here, it doesn't matter that I've missed a little bit. That's fine. We'll just colour that in. Then, oh look, it works when you look at where the writing is. It's funny that, isn't it? So just ink again. And just like you do with your VersaFine Clairs, make sure there's a good layer of ink on there. But always remember, when you've used your oxides, always clean your stamp afterwards. I don't clean my stamp after I've done the black, but always clean your stamp when you're doing the oxides. I'm going to bring this one down here a little bit. So just remember to clean them. The reason being, if you go back, if you leave that layer of oxide on there and then you go back to your VersaFine Clair, well, it's going to cloud it a little bit. So it has an effect just on the stamping then. So just give it a little wipe over. I don't bother cleaning my VersaFine Clair off. But if you like to have your stamps pristine, that's absolutely fine. Lovely. And then let's have this one. I can actually see this one better. And again, if I use the writing as an idea of where I'm going, we might get somewhere. There we go. Let's just use that just to remove the excess ink. Did I tell you, just in case, I am using Rustic Wilderness. I don't know whether I said that. So I'm using Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide ink. My card is Pink Frog Super Smooth 300 GSM 4x6. I tend to use 4x6, and that's why I've got that size in the shop on my website, because 4x6 is a lovely size I personally like to use. And just adding plenty of ink on there. I don't scrimp on the ink I am using. And then what do I want? Shall I have this one coming down here like so? Yes, we will. Hopefully you can see just as I'm down the bottom there. Just like any ink, you just need to allow it to sit just a little bit longer. Now there's quite a bit of detail in this stamp, and you need to be aware of that. So just give it a little bit of time just to absorb and sort of layer itself onto the card. Just give that a little bit of time. Don't be in too much of a rush just to lift the image up. Just give it a little bit of time just to absorb on there. You can use your platform, your stamping platforms, if you prefer to use your stamping platforms. And now I'm just going to wipe over my non-stick craft sheet, and I'm just going to wipe over the stamp, just so that if I ever go to the VersaFine Clair, it means I've not got all that ink on there. So now I've got my sort of layout of the images so far, and you can see that one's a bit paler. I didn't press on the ink long enough. Doesn't matter because we're colouring them in, so it doesn't matter one jot. So I'm going to take some water, and I'm going to take the Rustic Wilderness and add that to my non-stick craft sheet. So I've got my kitchen roll here. Kitchen roll is my friend. And what I'm going to do now, imagine you're working with pencils. So imagine this is your first pencil and it's your darkest colour. So imagine this is your dark colour. No different than if you were using pencils, but just imagine that that is your dark colour. And we're just adding this as a base colour just around the floral. Now you can just leave it if you like, just by blending the colour. You know, you can take this and you can just simply blend that out just to nothing. Let me just show you, like so. it's one of those stamps that if you like to just do something really quick, you've already got a beautifully shaded, let's bring this in, shaded floral. But I love to add more layers. That's me. That's what I like to do. I'm going to come in and do exactly the same with this now. So I'm just going to blend that out. You don't even need to add any colour. You can just blend out what is actually on the card. Just to blend that colour out. You can take off the colour, so use some clean water that isn't, and you can just blend it out further so it blends out to nothing. So use some clean water and you can sort of blend that out to nothing because you're picking the colour up from the stamp. But even in its own right, it's still really lovely, still really pretty. So at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm just picking up the colour that I've stamped with. That's it, nothing more. Just picking up that colour and blending that out. But for me personally, I like to add a little bit more detail to my design, and I like to add a little bit of pencil work. But what this is doing is this is just sort of giving me a base to work from. So I can see where all the detail of the stamp is, and it's just giving me, let's take some of that off. It's just giving me a base to work from. But again, if you just wanted to create something quite simple, that's what you could have. I'm then going to, so remember these, sorry, I've just knocked the camera, which just knocks you dizzy. So I've got Rustic Wilderness, so pretend this is my pencils. So I've got a dark coloured pencil, but it's an ink pad. I'm then going to have a mid colour, we'll see how many colours we use. Probably a mid colour. So we've had Rustic Wilderness. Let's go to Mode Lawn. Mode Lawn. Pick up some of that Mode Lawn. So we'll just clean our brush just so that we've definitely got Mode Lawn. So pick up that Mode Lawn, and then I'm just going to come in with a little bit of the Mode Lawn. And what the Mode Lawn is doing, it's adding that second colour, but it's a little bit more vibrant in colour. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the Mode Lawn. So it's bringing in a little bit more lightness to that design, a little bit more of a pop of colour. Now what I'm trying to show you here is that if you don't have pencils, if you're not, might not be able to afford the pencils, or you just haven't got round to it yet, you can still get a really lovely feel by just doing a wash of colour. But it's all about adding the layers of colour. Now I am going to add pencils, but I like to make it so that the projects are all inclusive. And if you haven't got pencils, you can still create something that you're pleased with. I don't think I need the peeled paint. I'm then going to clean my brush again and use Twisted Citron. Now, you would do this, you would add layers of colour, which I'm going to show you the difference with one flower. So I've taken Twisted Citron, so let's bring these colours in. You've got dark, medium, light, Rustic Wilderness, Mode Lawn, Twisted Citron. So I'm now going to go to Twisted Citron, which gives that pop of sort of limey, yellowy green. And I'm coming in to the other colours with that Twisted Citron. No different than if you were working with your pens. No different at all. So let's do that on all the florals, just so that we've got that lovely sort of pop of that limey green, just to give it a little bit more life. So you're coming in, and with the Twisted Citron, you're blending the edges of the other colours, just so there's no harsh edges. Now, don't panic about going over the edge, because we're going to spritz anyway, so we're going to have some bleed. So don't worry about that too much. I'm not even worried I've gone over the lines. Right. So let's just wipe this up. You could have a spare piece of card to mop up the colours. Right. I'm going to show you the differences each time. So this is when we've got sort of 3 colours and a little bit of wash of colour. Now, for me, I'm always explaining that I always think, personally, it's important to add layers of colour, just like you would if you were using your pencils. Now, to add layers of colour, we need to dry. If I go straight over the top, you know, like you do with your pencils, I always say to you, don't press too hard because it'll get too shiny. Well, if I try to layer on the top of this, it's not dried, so it'll still merge with the colours underneath. So I'm going to dry the ink a little bit. So let's dry that a little bit. Just so that when I add another colour, it looks like there's another layer on the top. So now let's add the colours here. We'll just do one floral, see if you can see the difference. So you've got Rustic Wilderness, Mowed Lawn, and pretend these are your pencils, and Twisted Citron. So you've got a dark, medium and light. It's up to you whether you go light, dark, whether you go light, medium, dark, or dark, medium, light. I tend to go with the dark first, because if you put the light down, you're only going to go over that anyway. So I'm going to put the dark down first. So I'm going to pick up the Rustic Wilderness, which is my dark colour. And I'm coming down as if I would with my pencils. And I'm going to add a darker layer of that colour. And I'm just coming in just with that dark layer of colour. No different than if I was using my pencils. So just adding that darker layer of colour, just like I would if I was using my pencils. So you can see it's got a harsh line. Now, there's no point me going in with that now, because it's got that Rustic Wilderness on there. You want to make sure it takes on the colour of the medium colour, which is the Mowed Lawn. So we're going to pick up the Mowed Lawn. I'm only doing the one floral at the moment. And with the Mowed Lawn, just like I would if I was going with pencils, I'm going in to the dark colour. So I'm pushing in to the dark colour and then dragging out slightly. So pick up a little bit more, go in to the colour and then drag it out. So go into the colour and then drag that out. And again. So what you're doing with your mid colour is blending out the lines on the dark colour. Again, exactly as you would if you were using pencils. Again, there's no point me going to my lightest colour if I've still got some of the dark colour on my brush. You can use 3 brushes, so you've got one for your dark, medium and light. I'm then going to go to the Twisted Citron, and then I'm going to blend the Twisted Citron into my mid colour. I'm just going to add a little bit more layer of that. So go into the Twisted Citron and add that colour. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the tinted water that is now tinted with Twisted Citron and just sort of blend out the whole lot with that Twisted Citron. Now, I personally can see the difference between this and these. One, it's smoother, so it's got more of a layer of colour. Obviously, we've got to do the inside as well, but it's smoother and there's more of a layer of colour. So I'm going to do that with them all, and then I'm going to show you what happens when you add a touch of pencil. So we've got enough Rustic Wilderness. Let's add some more Mowed Lawn. A little bit more Mowed Lawn. A little bit more Twisted Citron. And let's go in and do exactly the same with these. Just make sure you haven't got too much water. I've got a little bit too much water just on my brush. So just make sure you haven't got too much water. I can go in. I don't have to do one at a time with the inks. Add a little bit more darkness here. So I'm coming in with that dark on all of the florals. I'm just coming in with a little bit more of that Rustic Wilderness. So if you want, you can just colour with your oxides. So Mowed Lawn, but I do like to show you sometimes why I do certain things, why I bother doing certain things. So just blending now into the Rustic Wilderness with the Mowed Lawn. The Mowed Lawn again is a little bit more vibrant, obviously not as dark, but for me, I do love adding a little bit of that pencil work. So I'm going to mop up these dark colours here, and then I'm going to come in, let's just rinse that, come in to my Twisted Citron and just add some of the Twisted Citron just to blend the darker colours. So let's blend those darker colours with the Twisted Citron. Now, if I was just going to colour with the oxides, I would dry again and come in with a third layer of colour, just like I would if I was using pencils. So we just add a little bit more of the Twisted Citron, just so that you can see that you can keep changing it the more layers of colour. So the more layers of colour, we can keep changing that. So now what we're going to do, you could mop this up. So let's grab another piece of card because the colours are lovely. So these colours are wonderful. Well, I think they are. So let's just mop them up. I'm just going to give that a little bit of a dry so that I can layer the colour on the top. Let's just go from underneath. Trying to do this from all different angles, just so that I can layer the colour. I'm dropping everything on the floor. I've got me phone, cable, everything dropping on the floor. So I'm just picking this up And with it being a little bit drier, it means, again, like I'm doing with the pencils, I'm layering that colour. Let's move this up here so I can actually do something. Let's just let dry that. So I've got the rustic wilderness, the mowed lawn and the twisted citron on there. And if I just dry the card in between, I pick up these little dots of ink each time. There we go. So we've got a little bit of a background starting that you could use on another project. So let's move that to one side. I love how my kitchen roll looks as well. It looks so lovely. Right. So let's bring in our card. And what I'm going to do now is spritz the card with water, because I want the floral to now bleed. And I'm not going to blot that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move that on one side, and you end up with moisture everywhere. Well, let me rephrase that. I end up with moisture everywhere. But look how lovely that looks. Just lovely. Let's bring this in, which is absolutely sopping wet. And that's why I use Pink Frog 300 GSM Super Smooth card, because it can take it. Now, I don't want to blot that. So I've shown you that you could have coloured it, but because I'm adding pencil, I've spritzed with water, because I want that bleed on the outside of the florals, because it makes me happy. I love the bleed on the outside of the florals. So I'm not blotting, because if I blot, it instantly picks up a layer of that colour that we've just laid and dilutes it. Don't want that. If you don't want this to move, look, if I hold this further down, it's going to move that colour. If you don't want it to move, hold it higher up. So I've spritzed with water, which means that those colours have oxidised. There's another idea for you. You can leave it like that and have it coloured like that. So another idea for you. But I love adding layers. It's my favourite thing to do. I need to roll my sleeves up. Now, there's no point me going in here with pencils, because I'll just break the paper down, because the fibres are all wet. So I need to make sure that the card is dry. So I'm going to dry from underneath as well. And you saw how much I spritzed the card. Give that a bit of a dry. And you do really, now I will blot, because most of the colour is on there, so that's absolutely fine. You see, now you've got another look. So I showed you how to colour with the Distress Oxides, to stamp with the Distress Oxides. Now you've spritzed them, and you could leave it like this if you wished, just so that you've got another look, should you like that look. You don't need to, please don't scrimp on the drying, because you really need to make sure that is thoroughly dry, especially if you're going to go in with pencils. And you can tell when it's dry, because your card's got stability. It's not limp, it's not floppy, it's got some sturdiness back in that card. Just lovely. But doesn't that look lovely just in its own right? Oh, I love creating. Right. So I'm going to get my pencils now, because it's my favourite thing to do. So I'm obviously going to use chartreuse. I think we will have a touch of blue in there. And let's get some more greens. So, come on, Tracy. So, I haven't got a swatch. That's me. I'm terrible, but nothing new there, is there? Do you want that bit of turquoise? So, I've got the chartreuse. So, what do I want as my dark colour? What colour are you? So, as my dark colour, and I'll use that one. Now, I want a mid colour, so I think I will use that one. There we go. So I'm afraid I am terrible and I'm not a professional. I do it by sight. I haven't got colour swatches because I haven't got enough room to store everything. So I'm going to sharpen my pencils first, which I know isn't great. It isn't a great watch to watch me sharpen pencils, but I have to sharpen them because I don't like it if I haven't got something of a point on my pencils. I just find it a little bit easier with a point. I may use some of that turquoise, who knows? We'll see. And I'm definitely using chartreuse because it gives me that brightness. Let's clean this up. Now, I've already added a layer of oxide, so it's not like I need to go in there and do layer after layer after layer with my pencils. But I just want to show you what kind of effect you get when you add the pencils. So I'm going to come in, and please be aware, obviously, it takes a lot longer when you're doing a video with colouring, but I love the process and I love the results. I'm using Prismacolor. So this is Peacock Green, PC 907. So this is my dark colour. So I'm going to do this one first. So I'm going to come in now and add a little bit of detail. So, you know, when I said to you the inside needed colouring, it doesn't now, does it? Because you've spritzed with water and it's blended in that centre naturally. So I'm going to come in now and I'm going to add a little bit of detail just to the design somewhat. Now I'm not pressing too hard because I've already got that layer of oxide on there. So I don't want to come in now and press so hard that I break down the card. And I'm sort of doing a circular motion and adding some softness to that design. And because my pencil's got a point, I can really add that detail in there quite easily just with that pencil. I can add the detail quite nicely just with the pencil. So I'm going to add the darkness, and as always my hands on the pencil are quite high up, and because they're higher up it forces me not to press too hard. So I'm just adding a little bit of that colouring very gently and following the idea of the oxides. But I'm not going to cover up the entire oxide layer. So then I'm going to come to Apple Green, PC 912. And I'm going to come in with my Apple Green, going into the dark colour with my Apple Green. I'm going to go in there with my Apple Green. Now I'm not coming here like I do on some florals and adding the same layers of colour. I'm leaving that more sort of the oxide colour. Then I'm using the Apple Green to gently come in to that dark colour that I've just added with the Peacock Green. So I'm just coming in with the Apple Green and blending in to that darker green with the Apple Green. There we go. And then I'm going to come to my light colour, which for me is Chartreuse 989. And then I'm going to come in with the Chartreuse and just blend in to the other colours with the Chartreuse. Now the Chartreuse gives me that pop of limey colour, which is lovely. It just gives me that pop of lime, which I absolutely love. Now, what this is giving me is a little bit more oomph and dimension. And I'm going to add a little bit of this light colour just to the inside, to the softness of the other inside. But I'm going to bring a little bit of detail just to the inside, just to give a little bit of detail to that inside. Just so you can see it's got some detail in there. Bring in a little bit of detail on that because it wasn't quite as dark as the others. I can bring in some more of the darker line just with this dark colour, just to bring in a little tiny bit of darkness, mainly because this one was a little bit lighter than the others, but I love the softness of the inside. Now, what I'm hoping you can see is the difference between this and these, because it has a little bit more depth. So I'm going to add a touch of blue. So I'm going to come in with light aqua PC992, and what I'm going to do is just add on top of the chartreuse a little bit, and I'm really pressing very lightly just into the other colours with a little bit of a shade of this light aqua. Very lightly touching that. I'm almost skimming over it, just with a light touch of that aqua, because I don't want to obliterate the green, but it would be nice just to have a little bit of that aqua just on there, just very lightly. Can you see the aqua in there? Just little touches of that aqua, just wonderful. So just little light touches of that aqua. So I've not pressed on very hard because I can easily come in and add a little bit more of that aqua. I want it to look sort of quite natural. I do love where it bleeds out here. It just makes me very happy. So I'm going to now add the colour to the other florals, the auriculas, and we're going to come in and just add a little bit more detail with our dark. So I'm going to mention the colours one more time and then I won't mention them again. So dark, that is Peacock Green PC907. This is my dark colour to add the dark detail and some detail work with the darker pencil. Again, I will reiterate that I am not pressing too hard. Please note, there is no pressing too hard. I'm pressing very gently because you've already got that colour in there that we added from the oxide. So you're not obliterating the oxide. The oxide is adding to the overall feel. I'm then going to go to my mid colour, which is Apple Green PC912. The apple green goes into the dark colour just to blend the lines of that dark colour very lightly. Again, you're not obliterating the oxide. You're just coming in very lightly and adding a little bit more detail to your florals. I'm then going to come to the chartreuse that I like saying and just blend into all the colours with the chartreuse. So I'm blending into all the colours with the chartreuse. Now, we all colour differently. You just embrace how you like colouring. So I'm now coming in with a little bit of that light aqua PC992 and just adding some of that light aqua into the other colours, very lightly, just into the other colours. And there's nothing complicated because I'm simply coming in very lightly with the colour. I'm not pressing hard. I'm just coming in just to give a touch of the aqua. So now I won't repeat the colours. I'm just going to repeat the process. So I'm going to go in with my dark. Just add a little bit of the detail with the dark. And then that way, if you've missed little bits of detail, if with your stamping or whatever, you can just add that in by following the lines and adding a little bit of that detail back in. So just lightly adding the darker green, and it's up to you how much of the darker green you add. I'm then going to add my mid colour, apple green, which I said I wasn't going to repeat. So I'm going to add my mid colour and just blend the mid colour. You can't make it up. You record a video and then your husband goes and prints something. In my house, there's nothing, you can't be professional. It's impossible because the family don't listen to a word I'm saying. So I'm then going to add the chartreuse. So let's add that chartreuse. Just blend that colour. Do you know, I adore these colours. And then a little bit of the bluey, the aqua colour, just sort of brings a little bit more life to the design. Just a little bit more. Can you see where those fingers are on my pencil? Quite high up really, just to make sure I don't press too hard. Now, can you see the difference with the top three compared to the bottom one? I hope you can. This is where we spritz the colour. Oh, I just love it. It makes me so happy. It really does. So, we've got to do the third floral, which Tracy couldn't think what she was doing then. So, I have to remember not to lose myself too much because I get so engrossed doing the colouring. It's so easy to forget to speak. So I'm just coming around. And I keep my colours in order so I know what I'm doing. So coming in with that mid colour. Again, circular motion. And you can see that I'm not pressing too hard because I'm not lingering over a certain area too long. Coming in with the chartreuse. That chartreuse really adds some vibrancy and coordinates beautifully with the colours that I added with the oxide. And then a little bit of the aqua. But I've still got the feel of the oxides as well. I hope that makes sense. Because I've still got that oxidization, because this would look completely different if I just coloured with the pencils than using the oxide. So it'd look completely different. Oh, I absolutely love that. How wonderful. Oh, and it's blowing a gale again now. Just wonderful. Now I'm going to let that rest a little bit because I don't want to break down the card too much. Do I want a little bit? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of hickory smoke. So let's press that on there just so I can see. Now, obviously, I may have green on here. Of course, I've got green on there. There we go. And I'm going to just spritz my card with a little bit more water. And the only reason I'm doing that is I don't want the grey to appear unnatural. So I'm just going to add touches of the grey just so it appears quite naturally. I don't want it to appear just in lines, so I want it to appear more naturally. There we go. And then I want to find a little bit of blue. So I'm going to add a little bit of salty ocean. Now, again, I don't want it to just appear in blobs. So I'm just going to very lightly just add a few sort of little dabs. And the fact that there's water on there means that it's going to be a little bit more natural in the way that it is on the card. You don't want it to appear sort of regimented, if that makes sense. So a bit regimented there, so just soften it. So I don't want it to appear too regimented. So I'm just going to give this a dry now, just so that the card has got that sturdiness back in again. Now, the only thing it affects is the oxide, nothing else. And you can see how limp my card is. So I'm just drying from behind as well. And it does take a little bit of time for that to dry. And again, we'll just dry some of our surface area. Just going to go over it with the kitchen roll now because I've got the desired look. I'm just going to bend that card a little bit. It's still not stable. It needs to be dried a little bit more. To dry that from the other side. Don't go and pick your card up too soon either, because the amount of drying I'm giving it, it's going to be red hot. But you can see that pink frog card takes it. Look, I've got the sturdiness back in my card. There we go. Just got that sturdiness back. Let's have a look at the background. It's soft. It's just lovely. It's not too regimented. The background isn't. There we go. So the only thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to grab, let's grab, as she says, I need a grey. Which section are you in? That one. I've got that many greys. I want a warm grey. and they do call them some strange names, but this is 50% warm grey PC1054. And what I'm going to do is just gently, very gently, just add in a little bit more of that detail, just with a little bit of the grey. Just going to add a little bit more of that detail, just with that grey. So a few sort of lines, just to bring a little bit more interest and definition. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of the grey, just so it's got that definition, and you can see a few more of those details. It doesn't have to be anything precise, just adding a little bit of the detail just back in again. Now, you had text on there, and what I'm showing you now is, just because I've added text to the floral doesn't mean that that text has to be dominant in the design. Because I've stamped with the oxide, that sinks back into the background now, and you can hardly see anything apart from a few little touches, which is just what we want. We want just a few little touches. So let me show you now. And then what we need is our white. But can you see this, if you'd have stamped it in black, is very prominent, but now it's soaked into the background, and it just adds to the design as if you've stamped it afterwards. My camera's like, are you really asking me to focus on that? But it's just lovely. So I've given it time to rest a little bit, so which is wonderful. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white pencil, which is also a Prismacolor PC938, and lovely Lucy bought me some white pencils. I couldn't get any, and lovely Lucy got me some. Right, so I'm going to come in now and just add a little bit of white. Why have I started on this flower before this flower? Don't ask. There's no rhyme, no reason. But what I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit of white now, just at the bottom. Now, I'm not, again, I must bore you when I say it, I'm not pressing very hard. I'm sort of adding a little scribble of the white. Just a little scribble of the white. And I'm going to show you to see if you can see any difference between one floral and the other, just by adding a touch of white. Can you see how that just brings some brightness to the end of those sort of petals? So before I add my Posca pen, I'm just bringing in a little bit of white with my pencil. You can even sort of bring in a little bit of detail with your, which looks like you're hardly doing anything, but the overall effect just brings in more detail to the design, that's all. But I can see a massive difference adding this white. Again, it just brings a little bit more brightness and life to the design. again, I could come in with layers and you will notice more of a contrast. Somebody's put the heating on, bear with me. That's it. Feels like I'm being cooked. You'll find more of this sort of contrast with the white where it's quite dark. So where the florals meet, you will notice that it's where it's quite dark. You can really see that touch of white. Now, if you're somebody that doesn't like colouring, I've shown you how you can colour just using your oxides. I'm just going to add a little bit of white to these. But these are my favourite bits, the finishing touches and just bringing everything to life are my favourite bits. Now, what I love doing is I've got quite a sharp pencil and I do sort of like coming in with a little bit of white, but it's sort of adding a little bit of a layer of white that you think is sort of, it's almost invisible, but it's there. I know I'm probably talking a load of rubbish, but I know what I mean. And I'll lift this up just so that you can see how it changes. Before we add the Posca pen. And I think it's the overall thing that you're looking at. And you just add, there's nothing like white, I don't think. And I am going to add more white to the tips, but you can see just adding some touches of white. Now, personally, I would normally leave that for a good 5 minutes. This is the green card that we mopped up. I'm just going to make sure that my Posca pen works. Now, you'll need a piece of card on one side because as you work on this, you will pick up some of the wax from the pencil. So you need to sort of get that flowing again. Now, I'm going to lightly add some Posca. Look where my fingers are on that Posca pen. Don't try and, sort of press too hard. And again, I will say it as I say it many times, I'm not a colourist, I'm not a professional. I just do what I'm happy with doing. You know, what makes me happy, and as long as I'm pleased with it, that's what matters. So, sort of on the auriculas, they're sort of quite curvedy, aren't they? Curvedy, that's a really good word. The petals. So I'm sort of adding the lines sort of in that curvature, just so it sort of brings some shape to the petals. And what I'm doing is I'm not adding sort of big blocky lines. I'm sort of adding more scratchy lines, if that makes sense. Let's just add some little dots in here. And just bring a little bit of detail. Just so you can see, just bringing in little touches of that white. So I would rather add layers of Posca than come in too harsh too soon. So that's why I'm sort of coming in very lightly and adding those layers of white like I was adding the pencil, but I don't want to obliterate all the colour and effort I've made with the pencils and the oxides and obliterate it with too much Posca too soon. So that's lovely. So let's just take off the wax off there, and then we're going to come in just like we did before. And when you get used to the light pressure of adding the white Posca pen, you then come in and you're a little bit quicker because you're used to the pressure with your hand, what kind of pressure you want to add just to the auricula, so you sort of get used to that, how much pressure you want to add. Let's just take your time and add layers of that Posca. And if your Posca stops working, you need to give that a little shake and press it down on the surface of your paper just to get the paint flowing. But don't get it flowing too much, because you just want to add a little light touch, building up the layers of your Posca, but not obliterating the colours that you've added. You want to add that white, but you don't want to overpower the design with clumpy bits of white on there. You just want it to be there, but not too much. There we go. Oh, I forgot to add my little touches of white to the centre. And if you don't like adding sort of the lines, just add a few dots to your floral, and that always brings a little bit of brightness as well. Just sort of a few random dots just brings a little bit of brightness to the design. Doesn't have to mean anything, it just brings a little bit of brightness to that design. I'm then going to, now, so that the florals look like they are embedded in the page, I'm going to use my grey Inktense pencil, coming right in to this floral. And then the other florals as well. So just on this right hand edge, I'm using my Inktense pencil, Chinese ink, I think it's 2030, just so I can add the depth to this design, just so that it appears, so it looks like it's sort of embedded in the page. And it's going to affect your oxide a little bit. That's just natural. That's what it does. So just blend that in. Just coming in a little bit more now with a bit more moisture, just so that we've got that darkness. And again, you do need a card that is going to allow you to move the grey. You want it to allow you to move that grey. I want it on the other side as well. Do you know, I think I will. Or will I? No, I won't. So let's just Honestly, I can faff for England. But there is no point doing this on a piece of card that really doesn't move the colour. Just going to spritz just a little bit, just to soften everything. But it's got some moisture on there now, and whilst it's got moisture on there, I'm going to then add my Posca pen, because that will flare out like little cauliflowers on the areas that have got that moisture. And let's just give that a dry. Now the text on the stamp has almost disappeared, and it makes the stamp look completely different. And if you don't want the Posca pen to react too much to the oxides, then give that a dry. I am going to add more Posca pen anyway. Turn that card over. Give that a dry from the back. And I always tell the card who's boss. But if I bend that, you can see where that white sort of bleeds into the background, sort of around this area here. Just sort of softens everything. And then I just come in with my final layer of white, and I just press a little bit harder just at the bottom of the petal. So just my final layer of that white pencil. And then I'm going to add some text because I want it to sort of feel even more botanical. And because I'm adding this white over the top, the text is almost gone. And having the added benefit of looking through the camera is wonderful. It does give you, you know, a better idea. Now, with the Auricula stamp, you've got this text here, often displayed in individual pots on shelves. So if I take that text, and initially what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the text in grey, and I'm going to use Hickory Smoke. And I'm just going to use the Oxide because I want it to appear quite soft in the background, and it is going to be very soft. That's the whole point, because we're going to add another layer, which I'll show you. And every time we add a layer on the top, it pushes some of the layers backwards. So I'm adding this text just in the background, just so that it's there but it isn't. So this is just Oxide ink. Again, it's there but it isn't. And what I mean by that is I'm not overpowering the design with the text. I just need to give that a clean. Now let me show you what I mean by very subtle. Can you see that in the background? And then I'm going to add some white embossing. However, when you add white embossing, there are some key points that you need to remember. One, your card needs to be dry of all medium. All wet medium needs to be dry, because even if you add your anti-static bag, if your card is wet, got wet medium on there, the embossing will still stick to it. So now we'll grab our anti-static bag. So we'll take the anti-static bag now, and I'm going to add the anti-static bag all over the card. Well, just this area where I'm going to add the stamping. I'm then going to use the same stamp, use my Versamark watermark stamp pad, and I'm going to add some white. And it's amazing what the white does. I've got that many pieces of copier paper because I normally forget the copier paper, and I was determined I wasn't going to. And now I've got that many, it's ridiculous. So, a bit difficult to see, but it's there. Let's add a little bit more coming into this area here. And you're adding a bit of white because it'll add vibrancy and push. Let me see if you can see that, because it's no good if you can't see. And pushing the florals back just a little bit. Let's have a couple more. So let's have sort of one here. And then we'll do one more. Let me make sure that you can see, which you can't. There we go. And add this. The hardest bit is remembering where you've stamped. Right. Let's bring this embossing powder. You know, I have that copier paper and I still get embossing powder everywhere. Now at the moment you can't really see, oh yes you can see where I've sort of added it. So let's heat our heat tool up. Just heat that up and we'll melt that embossing powder. And the idea is you're not rushing, you're just enjoying the process. You're not rushing the process. There's no time scale on this. It's just about enjoying that process of creating. And then you're going to dust your card. I know. What am I talking about? Dusting. So I need a dry piece of kitchen roll. You're like, oh, you're mad? Dusting, it's soft. So I'm just going to soften that. And you've got all that anti-static bag dust on there, which flattens your colours. Look, and you can just dust some of your card, just to bring its vibrancy back again. Now the white embossing pushes back the florals and it's just lovely. I love that. Right, I hope you faff as much as I do. I'm now going to come in with a little bit of the salty ocean, a little bit of water, grab the brush and I'm just going to make it quite watery, and then I'm just going to come in just over the embossing a little bit. It's better to dab it like this, just so it isn't too regimented. You don't want anything too regimented. Just come in with a little bit more of that salty ocean, just to add a little bit more of that blue. And what this does is it picks up the blue that's in this area here. And if I just dab, it just means that it's not too false. You can even add a bit to your floral like this, but it's not too false, and that text appears to pop a little bit more. There we go. So now I'm going to come in with a little bit more white now, just a few lines of a little bit more white, because you put your anti-static bag on there, you've splashed with water on there. So I'm just emphasising a little bit more of the white. Now, if you are new to my YouTube channel, one thing I need to warn you about is I'm a faffer. I love faffing. It brings me a lot of joy just having a little bit of a faff. Just adding touches of white, for instance. It makes me happy. I'm just sort of softly adding scratchy lines to the floral. You can hear my husband shouting because Poppy, she gets all excited for carrot, and then she goes for my old girl. She snaps at my old girl who's 15. I mean, Poppy's 9, but she gets a bit too excited for old girl. So let's just add a little bit of that scribbly line there. A little bit more white. There we go. Just so that you can see. Oh, I love that. So I'm now going to grab my little puddy cat. So I want my little cat. I can never remember which way I want which cat. So I have to get them out. I want you looking at the design. So I'm going to get my little putty cat from TE36, ink that up with black ink, and let me just add my little putty cat here, round about there. Now there are so many layers on this card, I need to give it a little bit of time. And it's funny because the black sort of seeps through where the embossing is, and it's as if the embossing came afterwards when it didn't. My camera's like, you're just asking too much. So I've got my lovely little putty cat on there. Let's just grab a little bit of a wipe that's now drying. We don't want that little cat sort of sitting there doing nothing. We're wanting grounded. I can still feel a little bit of anti-static bag on my card. Just so that your cat is grounded a little bit. It's nice if he's grounded a little bit. And then, where's my mask? I'm going to take my mask. Just look at the writing, Tracy. It's a clue. And it's still not helping me, that isn't. Which way do you get? There you go. I'm going to add that there. And then from TE36, I'm going to add a couple of these numbers maybe. I'm going to add, look, my poor little cat has been used that much, he's already dropping off. Now, what you'll find is the black really sort of pops against that backdrop. And again, what it does is pushes those florals back. Oh, so I'll just move the mask now. I'm going to add number 1 around about there. Yes, and it worked. Watch this now. Have you seen how you're embossing? It's as if it's through the white embossing. So the black soaks through the areas that are open. It's just more natural. Oh, I love it. Love, 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 love. Creating makes me so happy. Number 1. Let's have number 2. Doesn't matter what numbers you have, really. Number 2. Let's have you up here. Tracy, just follow the text. I'm irritating myself. I keep turning the floral around. So take the black. It's like a little workshop, isn't it? Keep that there. And let's add the number 2 here. There. Lovely jubbly. Just like that. Place that back. I'm just going to give that a blot because you're on all that inky surface. So I'm just going to give that a blot. Then going to add a little bit of shading around these circles. There we go. Just blend that out a little bit. There we go. Oh, love it. And then I'm going to pick up the sentiment I was going to say that I've lost. Don't stamp onto your packaging, Tracy, which is something I often do. And then end up with no packaging. And then going to take the image, the text that says often displayed in individual pots on shelves. I'm going to take that, stamp it onto white card with black ink. You don't have to stamp or press too hard. I'm then going to cut this up. You're used to me by now, I have to cut that card down. So I'm cutting this into strips. Then we'll cut this down. Bit fiddly, but there you go. That's on shelves. Cut this down. Got the biggest pair of scissors on the planet. That's it. So I'm just going to decide that can go there. in individual pots on shelves. Okay, so we'll add this to our card with some adhesive that I haven't got out. Oh, I am bringing these to my online shop, I think. Let me just, I always forget whether I'm supposed to, yeah, that's it, screw them. Let me just see. Oh, yes. So I'm bringing these to the shop. I'm hoping they'll be here next week, where I've added my adhesive to these from Pink Frog. These, get the packaging, Tracy. Fine line applicators, because I'm getting arthritis in my finger there and I'm getting where I can't press very hard. So I've now can add a fine line of adhesive and I don't have to worry about it clogging. So I can put that on there. I've done displayed. So I'm hoping these will be in the shop next week sometime. I have to give poor Andy time. Honestly, I'm asking poor Andy to cut certain pieces of card for me. I work in inches and Andy works in millimetres, and I am terrible. I am the world's worst at measuring, and poor Andy has to put up with me. I bet he dreads when I place an order on shelves. There you go. And this, I have to say, is a game changer. I can place that back in. Don't know why I'm faffing so much. Probably because you're watching. There we go. I can place that in now and it's not going to get clogged up. Just wonderful. I'm getting there. You know, I've only been doing it 30 years and I'm getting organised now. You know, it's not taking me long, has it? Let's move them out of the way. So we're just going to add a little bit of shading under here, under each individual bit of wording. And then we'll add a little bit of water underneath to shade those. And underneath this one as well. There we go. Now, if you don't want the Posca pen to go all over your text, then you can put little bits of card like this over the top so that your Posca pen doesn't go over it. I'm just going to wing it, I'm afraid. So I'm going to add Posca pen now to my whole project. Move that out of the way. I just love that. I love how that one is gone. Absolutely love it. So let's place this onto a black mat, which nobody knows where my black mat is because it's under 75 million ink pads. And I am bringing the mat. You know how I've got the 4x6 in my shop? I am bringing the matte layers as well in black to make it easier for you, so you can just get on with creating and just stick your adhesive on your card and that's it. So I'm then going to add this. Oh, look at this. Oh yes, I'm liking this. I don't have to press too hard either. So I'm going to add that to my black mat, which is covered in embossing powder. Now you know what that'll do, it'll stop it sticking. There you go. So what I'm saying to this card is stick even though you're all killed. So I just need it to grab hold of that card. It's going to take a little bit of time, so I'm just going to hold that down. Now if you were using double-sided tape, as I say all the time, that would grab it straight away. I can't use double-sided tape because I get in a right mess because I never get it in the right position the first time. So with wet glue, it doesn't dry out and it gives really good sturdy adhesion. So I'm then going to add that to my 5x7 cards, again, that are on the website, a true 5x7 inch card. I don't want that little mark on that. I can't have marks on my card. So I'm going to add that to my mat. Oh, and it weird, look. I mean, it really does help. I mean, I'm asking the adhesive to adhere to the card when it's covered in embossing powder. I mean, I'm not asking much, am I? Let's add that to here. Press that down. Oh yes, I'm a big fan of that. Bring this closer to me so I can see what the heck I'm doing. You know, it takes me longer to faff. There we go. So I've got that closed now and it's nice and squishy. And there you have your card finished. And I really love that. You can even go in and just add a little bit more. Tracy, stop messing. A little bit more of the white, should you wish, just to that inside. Oh, come on, you know it's me, you know I'm going to faff, but you can add a little bit more. It's about the layers, and I'm really pleased with that. So I hope you enjoyed the process and my waffling as usual, and I hope you'll give that a go. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.